So, quick recap of where we're at. We were talking a little bit about, and again, I'm going to be looking away a little bit, so bear with me because I have some notes, which is why I like looking at the computer. But, so what we're talking about here is, remember, we talked a little bit about a couple years ago. You remember there was a time period where multiple people were being put on ventilators, and ventilators were killing somewhere between 80 and 90% of everyone being put on them. Now, going from there, we have to understand like why or what is going on that's causing that. Now, again, if we look back at some of the later data, which is like 2017, 18, all the major causes of death, heart disease, cancer, medical induced or medical accidents, things like that. Third, respiratory diseases, cerebrovascular diseases, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, influenza, kidney disease, and then self-harm, which is suicide, 10. When you read that list, 9 out of 10 of those, and remember, this accounts for 3/4 of all deaths that we have here in this country. These are things that are earned. They're not caught. They don't happen. It's not bad luck or bad genes. It is the things that we're doing on a daily basis that are affecting that. So when we get over the fact that, it's not always going to be something that's a bacteria or virus or parasite that's causing something. It's something internal. There may be a imbalance or something going on internal. We have to address There we go. We're back. So with that in mind, we kind of have to take that into account. And now we know already, we've talked about this before, we're raising a generation of kids that we now know 50% of have some sort of chronic disease already. So you're talking 1 in 2 kids is going to have something that they're going to chronically be dealing with likely the rest of their lives, especially if they don't change anything. So it's really important that when we're looking at this stuff, what are the things? Is it bad genes? Is it just by chance that half of a generation is just defective kids? No, of course not. We are designed to live on this planet. And the more that we are able to accept that and understand that we were literally designed to live here, we need to start asking questions more about the environment. Is there something that endocrine disruptors that are going to mess with your hormones? Are there things, medications that we know can do? We covered a little bit of that yesterday. We know toxins that are largely endocrine disruptors that we find in our environment. Food, things like glyphosate and herbicides and pesticides and antibiotics added to the conventional food supply. These are things that we really need to start asking questions about and what is going on with that. Because if we're not going to address it and we're going to pretend this is all, again, bad luck or bad genes. No. Is it heavy metals? Is it toxins based on things that we're injecting or, multiple doses of? And somewhere between around over 70 of them, if you're going through the whole schedule for every kid. Does that have a negative effect? We know aluminum has a negative effect on the brain, on the nervous system, on our ability to detoxify. So if we're not doing that, then what is going on? Now, we're talking about the immune system. There are a few different things here, right? We have innate immunity, which is something that we're all, born with. We have our adaptive immune system, which is our antibodies, right? This is what you call Th1, Th2. You might hear about this. So Th1 is our innate thing. Those are our different white blood cells, our neutrophils and stuff like that. These are the things that respond to something new in the environment. The antibodies, the IgGs and IgMs and all that, these are things that are made in response to something. So the next time it comes around, you are more able to incorporate it and handle it in a better way. Now, that is how this stuff works. Now, there's also passive immunity, which again, I was getting a lot of questions this week about, C-sections with babies. Now, you have to understand, babies get antibodies through their placenta if they are born through the vaginal canal. So if there is, a normal birth, that is the first exposure that babies will have to their mother's immune system. It's through the vaginal canal on the way out. And then also beyond that, this is why breastfeeding and the parent's health is so important, because if you are breastfeeding, then again, that's another way that exposes an infant's immune system or enhances and starts building it. Because remember, you're teaching something that's completely nuanced, completely new and foreign. So, having a kid that gets exposed to a bunch of different things and can take on at least some of the mother's immunity based on the environment, that's going to go a really long way. And we know kids that aren't given antibiotics or are born have a normal birth or are breastfed tend to have lower instances of things like asthma and allergies and all things of that nature. So doing that or playing a part in that is really, really crucial. That exposure to different bacteria and viruses and things that the mother has been exposed to is the first way that baby's able to build his or her own immune system. And that interplay is really important when it comes to gut health too. Why? Because 80% of our immune system is located right around that gut lining. So you have to kind of keep that in mind kind of as we go along here. So, the things that all play a role, things like toxic exposure. So we were just talking about that. Sleep, nutrition, your gut health. So again, exposures, or on the other side, are there toxins put into the environment? Are they heavy metals? Are they things like glyphosate? Are there conventional skin products that are going to irritate the skin microbiome, and anything you put on your skin is going to get absorbed into the bloodstream? Physical activity. We know physical activity helps strengthen and optimize the immune system. Is there anything else that's inflammatory going on? All of these are going to be contributors to chronic disease, even if they're seen in young kids. So we talked a little bit about Pitocin in a post earlier this week. You have to remember that is, if you're adding something that's a hormone that has negative effects, particularly before a kid is born, or you're forcing a kid out, that could potentially lead to some damage, potentially. So you have to kind of keep all that stuff in mind. And so, again, we can't get into this concept of it's all bad luck or bad genes. Like, we have to trace it back and start connecting these dots together. Now, so where do the lungs come in, and why is breathing so important? So when we look at the neck, got to bring some chiropractic reference into this, right? We have C3, C4, C5. They keep the diaphragm alive. These are three nerves that come out of the neck. They form the phrenic nerve that innervates the diaphragm. The diaphragm is your main breathing muscle. So and that is mostly stimulated by nasal breathing. So it allows it to when it contracts, it comes down. It contracts downward. That creates the negative pressure to suck air in and allows the lungs to expand. And then when you relax, it'll slowly push up, and then you'll notice just positive pressure. It'll slowly push air out almost effortlessly when breathing is correct. So, and the phrenic nerve is basically what's responsible for this movement, this contraction of the diaphragm. So this is something we learned in school. I'm sure anyone who's gone to any health-oriented school, you hear C3, C4, C5, C5 keeps the diaphragm alive. So, and you have to understand, there is nervous system control of the diaphragm. And this is mostly due to automatic function, our autonomic nervous system. So, what does that mean? We're broken up. Why is this in? I don't need this anymore. So what does that mean? It means that your automatic nervous system is broken up into two sides, right? And I talked about this in the post today. You have sympathetic and you have parasympathetic. If you are mouth breathing, or if you have a clogged nose that's stopping you from breathing through your mouth, you are going to be in a more sympathetic state, more fight or flight state. Remember, sympathetic is your fight or flight. Your parasympathetic is rest, digest, repair. So if you're not in that parasympathetic state, you're going to have a lot of trouble repairing and healing, which is really important. And it's really important that we have a sympathetic response, because that's going to keep us alive right now when we're in trouble. But when it's constantly on, if we're on the run, if we're super stressed out, and remember, 80% of all visits to the doctor are due to stress to some degree, that's going to impair our ability to heal. One of the factors, the mechanisms that we have that we can control it with, is our breath. So being able to initiate the parasympathetic nervous system through nasal breathing is going to help with dilating the bronchi, allowing for more air, dilating certain blood vessels that go to the digestive tract so there's more blood so you can digest your food better. It's going to help calm things down so you can do that. So inspiration, particularly through the nose, is going to be incredibly, incredibly useful. So, and the more air that we can get in, the more air that we can get in and use under a calm circumstance, that's going to, and allow the lungs to expand using the diaphragm, that's going to increase the surface area of the lungs and allows more air, oxygen, carbon dioxide exchange to happen in the lungs. So really important to kind of keep that in mind. Now, interesting thing, when we're talking about things like viruses, this is why, particularly in kids, if you tend to get sick a bit as a kid, they tend to, and are exposed to the normal environment, these kids tend to get less sick or less chronic problems with things like asthma or allergies if you allow them to get exposed and live in the environment like they should. So if they happen to get viral infections or lower respiratory tract infections as kids, they will tend to build a better immune system for the rest of their life. So this is why you're always talking about, getting kids out there, having them play in the dirt and get out there. This is going to affect how their immune system develops and how it's going to affect the lungs. So really important that we kind of, get that in line. So, when you're doing breath work, it's important to be kind of in a comfortable state. Now, you can employ nasal breathing techniques in exercise. For example, like if you're running or doing a kind of lower to moderate exercise, you can do that. But try to get into a comfortable place and start with that. It's really, really powerful stuff. You just have to kind of get with it and start with it. Now, interestingly, if we take that same kid who might get an illness or exposed to maybe a virus as a kid and you give them antibiotics, one, that's not really going to do anything because antibiotics don't treat viruses. But the other is that's going to disrupt the microbiome, the microflora. So when that happens, that's going to increase chances of potentially something chronic going on, right? So when that happens, that's going to expose you or give you make it more likely that you develop something like asthma. Reading something from the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology, there is an association between antibiotic use in the first year of life and current symptoms of asthma, rhinoconjunctivitis, and eczema in children 6-7. So when there's something going on with the gut, skin and breathing stuff can occur. It's important. And those are related. We've talked about skin health a few weeks ago. Really, really important to kind of keep that in mind. When you're taking antibiotics, again, antibiotics, sometimes they can save your life. Most of the time, that's not the case. But these are effectively like throwing grenades at the gut lining. It increases intestinal permeability. When we know the intestines are more permeable, more leaky gut, that tends to lead to more potential symptoms. So when that is the case, if you're constantly taking these, if we have an immune system that isn't necessarily up to snuff or hasn't been exposed to the environment, or maybe there was a C-section involved, or maybe there were, antibiotics and there was Purell used on everything, You're not getting the exposures you could. And it's something we're thinking about here, right? Like, we use the most hand sanitizer. We try to keep everything as sterile as possible. Yet this generation of kids seems to be sicker than any generation ever before it. These kids are not defective. It's an environment that is not conducive to long-term health. And that ultimately is the really important part and the key. So I want to kind of just keep that in mind as we go. So what are things that we can do to boost the immune system? Listen, it sounds super simple, but like, there are studies out there now done 20 years ago that show if you even just have one serving of vegetables, if you increase it by one, that's going to help lower your risk of things like heart disease or circulation stuff. And like, everyone wants to ask about like what the most specific thing is. I am much less concerned with that and more just starting to incorporate these things. Broccoli, spinach, fruits, citrus, leafy greens, fiber. I'm a huge fan of things like lentils and chickpeas and beans of all kinds. These are going to help. They're going to help build the gut lining. They're going to help create more resiliency that way. Also going to increase bowel movements, which is a great thing, because if we're not eliminating toxins, if we're trying all this stuff and we can't eliminate, that's going to be a big, big problem. So really important to check that out. Also going to help mitigate things like, I don't know, cancer. Really important. So things like antioxidants, different bioflavonoids that you find in a variety of different colored foods. Really, really important. And thank you for signing up for the course. I really hope you enjoy it. These are things that are all going to help. They're all going to help balance cholesterol levels, LDL and HDL. And that we've talked about that before. So check that video out. All of these things are going to be playing a role. So if we're in this sympathetic state where we're mouth breathing, where we're having trouble breathing through the nose, where we're increasing sympathetic tone because we're always breathing through our mouth heavily, and we're wondering why we're stressed out, and we're wondering why, we need the 5th cup of coffee, like, we have to take a step back and start with the super basic stuff, because we don't want to be addicted to drugs, even things like coffee, and because that is going to lead to a dependency factor. Even if you're someone, if you've ever tried to wean off something like caffeine, I have done that myself. It's a crappy headache you're going to feel for a few days. But you feel so much better on the back end, and it helps normalize your circadian rhythms. Why? Because even if I had a coffee at 8 a.m., the half-life of coffee is somewhere between 6 and 8 hours. So you're going to have 50%, somewhere between 50 and 25% of that caffeine still in your system by the time you go to bed. So we have to, be able to put 2 and 2 together and not pretend that this is things like bad luck or bad genes or something else is going on here. Smoking. Someone was talking about smoking before. Listen, that's a no-brainer, but we have to touch on these things first. So things like vitamin C rich foods, kiwis, strawberries, guava, all of these things, broccoli, kale, all of these things are really, really going to be helpful. They can help protect the lungs. Cantaloupe, peppers, I always forget. Peppers are a huge one, huge source. Also a good source of silica, which is helpful for immune system function, helping the lungs. It can also help regenerate. It improves iron absorption, which comes sometimes along with it. So vitamin C can help. Tomatoes, also really good. And it's also going to help limit some of the damage of smoking, even though we gotta get that out. And I don't care if it's a vape. I don't care if it's, cigarettes, if it's a joint. Anything like that, that's going to damage the lungs to some degree. So getting vitamin C rich foods, really, really important. Vitamin A rich foods, also really important for a healthy nervous system. Now, also helps with vision, also going to help with proper cell growth and maintaining that. Also need different minerals that help with that. Vitamins K and D are really important to help with that. Magnesium, copper, really important. Now, you can always get vitamin A from carotenoids, which is in any pretty much orange colored vegetable or fruit. Also in a lot of green vegetables too, you'll notice like as green vegetables sometimes start to go bad, they'll start turning yellow. Those are the carotenoids coming through because of the chlorophyll getting kind of taken out. So all of those really, really good. Things like astaxanthin. I've talked about this. Sometimes taking this, and I don't recommend this because I do recommend getting all of your stuff from food if you can. Astaxanthin will help protect you from UV radiation. So there are cases where if you start taking that a couple weeks before you start going out in the sun more often, it will limit or keep or protect you from sunburns. Because remember that's what that can do. So getting those antioxidant rich foods can really, really do that. Again, kale, spinach, sweet potatoes, squash of all kind this year, carrots, these are all your fall foods. They're all in season right now, and we could all take advantage of it. Glutathione. So a lot of different medications cause issues with this. So things like, your Tylenol is going to deplete glutathione, which is your master antioxidant. So that doesn't make much sense. So getting glutathione or things that can support it, like sulfur-rich fruits and vegetables, your cruciferous vegetables, your garlic and onions, your asparagus, all going to help improve or help replenish glutathione that we absolutely need. We don't necessarily need to be using glutathione supplements or even astaxanthin supplements. We need to be getting the full complement of antioxidants from all of these different foods that contain these. Things that are really helpful for the immune system. I love talking about black seed oil. I think that's my favorite, black cumin seed. You could get it in tablet form, which is Black Cumin Seed Forte by MediHerb or something like that. No, it is MediHerb. There's also in oil, you can get black seed oil. This stuff is literally biblical. They talk about this in the Bible, in the Torah, in the Quran. They talk about things like black seed oil. That's how long this stuff's been around, and people have known how helpful it is if something's going on with the immune system. Antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, antifungal, antiviral. It's one of those things that's used all the time, and I cannot speak any higher than I could of it. Black seed oil is something I use. I use one from Heritage that I really like. I do believe there's another one. Give me 1 second. See, I have a computer here, so I might as well use it. Gaia Herbs has one, so that's a really good one too. They have it more in gel caps. That's a really good one. These things are no-brainers, and they're things that, again, literally they're talked about in the Bible. Now, I'm not, much of a, standard religious person, but interesting to note. There's things like isothiocyanates. So these are things found in your sulfur-containing vegetables too. So all of these things are really, really good, really, really useful. Again, cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, arugula, horseradish. I'm forgetting them, but cruciferous vegetables, all of them, really, really good. Things like turmeric. Awesome. These are spices that you can put on your food that you can use every day. Cinnamon, thyme, turmeric, cloves, all of these. You can use it in especially this time of year. You get all those warm spices. Super, super helpful. So vitamin D, especially this time of year. Now listen, ideally we'd be getting it outside from the sun. If you're going to get testing done, ideally you're looking at for it to be between 50 and 80. That's going to be your optimal range. If you have to supplement this time of year, you could. Much easier to kind of go outside if you can. That's going to be it's a hormone, but it's super important for your immune system function too. So when you're talking about immune system function, when you're talking about lung health, and then obviously the breath work stuff. So I'm just going to wrap this up quick. I'm essentially giving the course away. It's like $50 you can get it for now. It's has all the breathwork stuff that I use with all my patients. Like I said, it's one of the universal things that I share with all of them. You can get the course for 50% off now. You use code Halloween50 between now and Halloween. But it's super powerful. It's stuff that I think like literally anyone on the planet can benefit from. The link's in my bio. Use the code, give it a shot. I think if you have allergies, if you have asthma, if you have definitely sleep apnea, if you have low energy, if you have any gut issues, you have to start with the things that are controllable. And this is something that's super controllable and almost anyone can benefit from. If you're a kid and you're mouth breathing or having trouble with that, this is even more important because how you breathe is literally going to affect how your face develops. So if you see kids, with like the sunken eyes or the long nose or the receding chin, you can tell that kid was probably a mouth breather, like growing up or was sick a lot. Literally how you breathe can change the structure of kids' faces as they grow. So even more powerful with kids, although this is incredibly powerful as an adult. I did all this stuff as an adult, but as a kid, it could pay even more exponential dividends. Thanks for hanging out with me today. That's kind of what I got. I will see you at some point this weekend. I still have the Q&A open if you want to answer some questions. I got some things I got to do. I got to clean up. I love you all. If you want to work with me one-on-one, which I am still taking people on, especially virtually, if you want to join the wait list, there's a link for that in my bio. You can DM me. I do iridology consults. I do full workups. And it's really about, getting you to a point where you can heal yourself. That's the goal I have with every single person I work with is, we get to a point where ideally you don't need someone like me. So that's the goal. That's what we work on. Like I said, love you all. Thank you for hanging out. Feel free to get in touch. I hope you find all this stuff useful, and I'll see you soon. Peace.